Siddur Snippet series is journalism sponsored by the Saka family, by Elad Avram Foreman for Refuah Shlema Hadassah Rachel Bas Chana Golda. The last snippet was number 600, and I joked, I think I might be the only person who heard all 600. 2 people texted me to wish Mazel Tov and say it's not true. They heard every one of the 600. My shver and my shviger, my father-in-law and my mother-in-law. So I'm very grateful to them and honored that they joined, and they should be healthy and well and continue to listen for as many as we can do. We're on the bracha, Ritzei and V'sachazena, eineinu b'shivcha l'tzion b'rachamim. We last left off the notion of eineinu. Why do we say V'sachazena, a chazon, choseh, to see, more than just to see with our eyes, but a vision and a dream, eineinu. So why do we have to include the image of our eyes? So we mentioned, Yonasan Yoros Dvash points out that our eyes, because one only merits to see directly when there's zocha to that geula, to that redemption. Lot's wife was instructed, don't turn around, you're not entitled to see. You're only escaping on the coattails of Uncle Avram. Don't look. She looked into a pillar of salt. We mentioned Noach, the 2 pshatim in Soar Tasal Teva. Was it a window or a gem? Might be totally, might depend. Were they entitled to look out at the mabul or not? Were they worthy or unworthy of being saved? So similarly here, eineinu, Rabbi Yonasan says, let us see with our eyes because we merit. We're entitled. We want to be able to watch Nasrallah and Deef and the leaders and Khamenei. Let us see with our eyes the return to Tzion and the rebuilding of the Beis HaMikdash on top of Har HaBayis. And that he continues, Rabbi Elul Pion writes, that's the pshat, berachamim. Kadosh Baruch Hu, with your compassion, return us, meaning compassionately, with kindness, let us merit, let us be worthy to see it with our own eyes, to not have to look down or look away, but to be entitled to be able to see it with our own eyes because we merit. But perhaps there could be another understanding of berachamim. Hashem, return, let our eyes see your return to Tzion, berachamim, with kindness. There are different ways the geula could happen. The redemption could happen when we're worthy or unworthy, in a way which is incredibly painful or in a way which is blissful. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu, we ask you, bring speedily the end of days, let it be the geula, the Mashiach come, return to Tzion, do it berachamim, do it in the manner, do it in the mechanism of compassion. I want to share with you an incredible insight of the Heilig Hashem Yishmuel, the Sachat Shavar. He writes on Parshas Vayigash, and he writes the following. He's talking about Kibbutz Golios La'asid Lavo will happen with Melchemes Gog uMagog. We know the Navi tells us, Yechezkel tells us, we just read it on Chol HaMoed, Sukkah, Shabbos Chol HaMoed, of the eschatological era in the end of days. There'll be this battle. Gog, the king of Magog, against the Jewish people. We don't have time to talk about it now, but already hundreds of years ago, the commentators pointed out that this battle of the end of days includes the Yishmaelim and Edom collaborating, the descendants of Rome, Christendom, who are collaborating with Yishmael, the descendants of Yishmael, of Arabs, and they come against the Jewish people, and that is Gog uMagog. There will be the death, the murder of Mashiach ben Yosef, the precursor to Mashiach ben David, Gog uMagog, which describes, if you look at the language of the Navi, and he talks about the way the sky lights up, it's almost like, God forbid, a nuclear war. It's almost like a description of a nuclear war. So the Shem Yishmuel says, do we really have to endure that? Do we have to go through that? Do we have to experience the pain, the suffering, the tragedy, the loss, before we can jump right to the geula, right to the redemption? Listen to what he says. It's unbelievable. He says, we have a tradition already from our holy ancestors. Sheme'ata niftarnu mimelchemes Gog uMagog v'achar kibbutz Golios yeshvu Yisrael b'menucha ad masam la'olam. That we have already had such a long and such a painful exile. We've paid the price of Gog uMagog. We will not have to live it, and will not have to endure it, because we've already been there and suffered from it. So you'll say, one does the Sachat Shavar. I can never say such a thing. The Heilig Sachat Shavar. Look, Shem Yishmuel, Parshas Vayigash, he wrote it in 1916. And he says, but I don't understand, the Navi tells us, in several places, the Navi predicts, there'll be this battle, this war, Gog uMagog. What do you mean we already lived it? Where does it say that you can already get out of it? Because we've suffered enough. We've already collected and consolidated that suffering, we can get out of it. So listen to what he writes. Shekamoshe b'Mitzrayim, Kisha Ashibud Hishlam Adad Me'ashana, came begalaz lehepach. Arichos Hazman Hashlim L'Kisha Hashibud, V'roz Rabbos V'tzorshi Musados Lava Asona Yisrael, Ken Basher Arichos Hazman Hashlim Hashil Yachevle Aleida, Kol Kach Kashim, Ad Bilti Efshar Lizbol, Shuv Yoser Nachon, Shigmar Amirik Legamri, Boden and Begolos. The inverse happened in Mitzrayim. In Egypt, we were supposed to suffer for how long? The Torah predicted the Shibud would last 400 years. But when did He take us out, Hashem? After how long? Only 210. You see, Hashem consolidated our suffering into 210 years. After 210 years, He said, Genuk, enough. And He took us out. And we didn't have to suffer the entire 400. And similarly here, writes the Shem Shmuel, he writes about Arichas, but we don't have time. But he says, similarly here, our gullus has been long enough and painful enough. We've prepaid for the Nechemes Gog uMagog. We won't have to live it. We won't have to endure it. And therefore, we're going to skip right to Kibbutz Galios. We'll be gathered in Eretz Yisrael. We'll be gathered in the sovereignty of the Jewish people. And we'll be able to skip right to Amir Tashem Geula. So maybe that's what we're davening. What are we asking? How? Berachamim. Berachamim. Count what we've already paid. Consider that we've already suffered enough. Consolidate, so we don't have to go through a Gog uMagog, much like you did in Mitzrayim, reducing the sentence from 400 years to 210 years. Similarly, Berachamim, with kindness and with compassion, accept what we've already endured, so we can skip right to the Geula that will come. Kadosh Baruch Hu Taka return with a sense of Rachamim.